Two brothers from Mount Moriah. Long, long ago, and far, far away in another land, there once lived two brothers. In peace and happiness they shared the rich and fruitful land that their father had left them. During the warm days of early September, the brothers plowed their land. Then row by row they walked through the fields, dropping tiny seeds of wheat into the rich, dark earth. Through the autumn days of gentle rain and earth-warming sunshine, the green shoots of wheat pushed up tall and strong. All winter they grew, and late in the following spring the golden harvest was ready to be reaped. Again the brothers walked together through the fields, cutting the golden wheat, and then they carefully gathered up the fallen grain and tied it into sheaves. Later, in the cool of the evening after that first day's harvest, the sheaves of wheat were divided, share and share alike between them. Then each brother placed his sheaves in a pile and retired to his tent. The long day's work in the sun had tired Amos, the older brother, but sleep would not come to him. He tossed on his bed, thinking of the cutting of the golden harvest that day. Then his thoughts drifted lovingly to his younger brother, who had worked so hard beside him in the fields. My brother Boaz has a wife and children whose needs are many, he thought. I have only myself and my few needs, and yet we divided the wheat, share and share alike. That was neither right nor fair, for Boaz and his family need more of the fruit of the land than I do. Then Amos arose in the night and went out toward the wheat field, dark and rustling in the moonlight. He lifted some sheaves of wheat from his pile and bore them over to his brother's pile nearby. Then he returned to his tent, and without more trouble he fell asleep. Throughout the night Amos slept peacefully, happy because he had given his brother some of his wheat. But it came to pass that a strange thing happened while Amos slept. In the darkness of another tent Boaz also lay sleepless, thinking of his older brother. I have a loving wife and many willing children, thought Boaz. When I grow old and can no longer plow the land or harvest the wheat, my strong sons will care for me. But Amos is all alone and has no children to comfort him. Who will care for him in the winter of his days? My heart lies heavy, and I cannot sleep when I think of how we divided the wheat, share and share alike. That was neither right nor fair. Boaz forthwith arose from his bed and went out to the wheat field. He lifted some sheets of wheat from his pile and bore them to his brother's pile nearby. At dawn the next morning, just as the first sunlight was brightening the yellow wheat field to a shining gold, the two brothers arose. Then they stood together in silence before their piles of wheat and stared with wonder. Each of them had expected to find his pile smaller than his brother's, but each of the piles was the same size. Another brother spoke of this to the other. They turned silently to the field and went again about the work of reaping and harvesting their acres of golden grain. Again at the end of the day they divided the sheaves, share and share alike. But again that night each brother arose in the darkness and went forth to bear some of his wheat to his brother's pile. Thus at dawn the next day they again found that neither pile of sheaves was any greater than the other. On the third night both brothers arose to do again that which they had tried to do on the 2 nights before, but this time Amos and Boaz met face to face, as each was bearing sheaves of wheat toward his brother's pile. They looked at each other in the moonlight, and they let the sheaves fall to the ground. They put their arms each about the other one and cried. They cried with joy because now they understood how great was their love for one another. Then Boaz and Amos lifted up the wheat which they had dropped. They piled it in a special place on Mount Moriah, apart from the rest of the grain. They would be reminded, when they saw it, of the love they had shown for one another. In the course of time, a mighty king built a temple on Mount Moriah, and he placed the cornerstone of the temple on the spot where Amos and Boaz had piled their sheaves. Thus the king hoped that the love of these two brothers would forever be remembered by all who entered the temple.